So we're in Yevamos, Daf Mem Dalid, Mem Gimel based on the bottom. So we had many cases of Arba Achin and very confusing cases. This is a simple case, even though it also sounds Arba Achin. But the Mishnah just wants to say that if there are many wives of the different brothers that fell to Yibum, so in general we know that mitzvah b'gadol yabim, that the mitzvah is for the oldest to do the Yibum. And here, what if there are many, a few brothers died? So do we also say that the oldest one, the Chatchila, should marry all of them? So it says, l'chora, yes. Arba Achij and Nesuna Arba Nashim. There are 4 brothers married to 4 wives. The Gemara is going to say that it means there's other brothers also, of course. These died, Umesu. So there are 4 wives of 4 different brothers that are falling to Yibum. If the oldest one, they build a mitzvah for the oldest one to do Yibum, and here there are many wives of different brothers to do Yibum too. So also, he has the permission to be Yabim all of them, even though there are other brothers available. He might think that each one should take one. So it says no, the oldest one can take all of them. It is interesting that the Mishnah doesn't say that it's a mitzvah. We know in general there's a mitzvah for Gadol Yabim. Here it doesn't say that there's a mitzvah for the Gadol Yabim, but it does say Rishus Biyodo. And the Gemara is going to talk about the Chiddush over there is why should you think not? But I didn't find if the post can talk about that it's only Rishus and it's not a mitzvah. But the Mishnah does say that he may take all of them and he'll have 4 wives, 4 from 4 different brothers. We'll see what the Chiddush of that is. A new Mishnah. So this we had many times already, that if a man died, then he had a couple of wives, and he has no children. So then the wife, there has to be done Yibum or Chalitza, but only to one of the wives. You don't do Yibum or Chalitza to both of the wives, only one of them. Yibum or Chalitza to one of the wives, and then the other wife goes free because one of the wives was taken care of. And the Mishnah continues on Amud Aleph. If of the this Gemara explained once upon a time, here it's not going to elaborate. The Gemara is not going to be long over here, but once upon a time it did. Then it means to say that if one of them was kosher to kahuna and the other one is puzzle, what would be the case? For instance, that one of these wives once upon a time was divorced. So the brother who died, he had 2 wives. One of them was once upon a time divorced from an earlier marriage, so she's puzzled to a Kohen anyway. Another one never was divorced, so she's kosher to a Kohen. If he's going to do chalitza, so then he should not mess up the woman who's kosher to Kohen. Why? Maybe she want to marry a Kohen, so why mess her up for nothing? Anyway, you're doing chalitza, so do chalitza to the one who's anyway a grusha, and don't mess up the one who is kosher to Kuna and make her apostle. Why should you do that for? It's wasting. Like the Gemara is going to say, if you have something to throw out, and anyway you're not going to use it, but somebody else could use it, so don't throw it out. Put it in a place where somebody else could use it. So too, if he wants to do chalitza, he should do chalitza only to the one who's apostle. Why? Why should he passel the kosher one for? If he wants to be miyabim l'kshera, that the Gemara says means not over here, but the Gemara says af l'kshera, that he can take each one he wants. He could take the kosher the apostle. What's if he's not a kohen? So he could take whichever one he wants. But if he does chalitza, so don't mess up the kosher one for no reason. So we had the 2 Mishnayos, and back to the first Mishnah. The first one was about if there are many brothers that died and their wives are falling to Yibum. So the oldest brother, he can take all of them. So first, the Mishnah, the words of the Mishnah, the Gemara is very jumping on even the words. It doesn't make sense. It says that 4 brothers had wives and they died. So that's the end of the story. If there are only 4 brothers altogether, of course it doesn't mean that. But the Gemara says, the words say, if you look in the Mishnah, it says there are 4 brothers that had 4 wives and they died. Okay, so it's the sad story, but there's nobody to be miyabim. Of course, it means that there are more brothers, but the Mishnah didn't say that. The Mishnah didn't say that there were 5 brothers and 4 of them died. It says there were 4 brothers and all of them died. So what are we talking about? So it doesn't mean that. And the Gemara just fixes up the wording. There are 4 brothers that died. So what's the question about Yibum? And it means 4 of the brothers. It means many brothers died. There are other brothers that are left. And the question is, who should do Yibum? So the Chiddush is that not only 5 brothers, then also wouldn't be a Chiddush. The Chiddush is that there are 6 brothers or more. And let's say there are 4 brothers left. 4 brothers died, 4 brothers left, and they say 4 brothers died. So each one of us will take one of the yevamos, and the oldest one says, "No, I want to take all of them." So he has the rishus because he's the oldest one.
Well, let's say if there were only really 4 brothers, they don't all die at the same time anyway.
Okay, but if they all died, now there's nothing to talk about.
You guys have to say, but the first brother dies, and then one of the other brothers does Yibum, then the second one does. And
No, you can do the second. You can do it again. It doesn't have to be in an order at the same time. You're right. That even if it would have happened 10 years later, also the oldest one says it's mitzvah on me. Mitzvah b'gadol yabim. I have the mitzvah, have the right. So he can take her again. He can take all of them, even if it didn't happen simultaneously. Right. You're right.
So even if there were only 4 brothers, the fourth brother till he dies could do the other three.
Yes. But the Mishnah is talking about that all of them. So that's why the Gemara says it means 4 of the brothers is coming to say, like it says that he should take all 4 of them. That's the case of the Mishnah. But you're right. It could have talked about 3. It could have talked about 10. So we'll see soon why it doesn't say 10, why it says a number. But the first point is just to fix up the wording of the Mishnah, that it means 4 of the brothers died. And the Chiddush is that the oldest one, and the Chiddush is that the oldest one has a right to take all of them. Oh, it's just beyond us. First, the Gemara is surprised. It's very expensive to have 4 wives. And the Gemara thinks that they usually can't afford that. And, the Gemara is going to say right away that not always do we say that it's preferable to do Yibum, only if it's possible. But if there's practical advice against doing Yibum, so we tell him to do Chalitza. So what is this? We allow him to take 4 wives. For Shavkile, we allow him, like it says, Rishus Biyado. But Tanya, the Gemara is surprised that it doesn't talk about this issue of Parnasa, but other issues that might get in the way of a good marriage. It says, the pasuk says that she comes to Besna and she says, my yavam, my brother-in-law doesn't want to do Yibum. So it says that the Zakanim should come and speak to him. The pasuk around the pasuk, you get the impression they try to convince him, but if he doesn't want to, so then they take him, they do Chalitza. That's how the pasuk reads. But the Gemara says that in the pasuk, there's mashmois that sometimes they also give him advice to do Chalitza also. It isn't always that they're pushing for the Yibum and only if he doesn't want. Sometimes they also advise him that it's not preferable to do Yibum. The pasuk says, that's the pasuk of love. So we dash in both parts of the pasuk. The first one is not our subject. That there's a mitzvah that they themselves should call him, not that they send the shliach bezdin. Usually a shliach bezdin is sent to call somebody to bezdin, but here it says they go themselves. And also for the buay love, that's the Gemara's dasha we want. They speak to him. The boy makes it rash that it means that they speak to him for what's good for him. They give him advice which is good for him. Not that we want to do Yibum in all cases. He's a Kana, who's Zakin, Vahiyalda, Omum Lo Malachesal Yalda, Malachesal Kana. We try to give good advice that will be good for their marriage. So if she's much older than him, or he's much older than her, so it's not a match. So we tell them, why take a woman that's not compatible for you? Go to somebody who's like you, and you give her chalitza, and don't cause that there should be bickering in your house. That it causes problems if they're not the same age, if there's a very big age difference. So that's the Rice that talks about that's considered Eitzal Genesla. The Gemara is comparing it to our subject also, even though there's no issue here about the age, but the issue is Parnasa. If he doesn't need to take 4 wives, he's not going to be able to Mefarnas all of them. So we should have told him to do Chalitza. The Gemara says, you're right, it's a good kasha, but the case is that he has enough money. He's a rich man, he could afford all of them. But at the time, if he couldn't, we would tell him we wouldn't advise him to do Yibum. It sounds like we wouldn't allow him. We're not going to allow him. The Gemara is a problem then. Why does the Mishnah talk about 4? If it's talking about that he happens to be rich, he has parnasa, so then if he's so rich, he can have 10 also, whatever the case is. Why did the Mishnah choose to say a number? Could have just said that the oldest one has the right to do Yibum on many wives. It doesn't on many different wives, not of the same person, of course, but many brothers died, so then he's allowed to take all of them. The oldest one has the right. So why talk about number 4? So here the Gemara says that the Mishnah is telling you some advice on the side. That it's not advisable for anybody to take more than 4 wives, even if he could afford it, even if the money is not a problem. There's another issue. That the halach is that a husband is chayiv to have marital relations with his wife, and there's a certain time that each person according to his occupation, according to his koach, how much he could, and that's the obligation of a husband to a wife. And if he has many wives, so they divide that amount amongst the wives. So if a person, for instance, the more goes by Talmud Chacham that it says that the time that he should be with his wife is once a week, for instance. So then if he has 4 wives, so he's not going to be with all 4 wives every week. He divides it, and it'll be one a week. His koach is to give 1 a week. So he'll have relations with them if he has 4 wives only once a month. If he has more than that, then it's going to come out once. If he has 5 wives, it'll be once every 5 weeks, or once every 6 weeks. And that the Gemara says is not advisable. That a woman shouldn't have relations with her husband at least once a month is considered extreme. So
I think it might let know. So it's like once every 3 years.
So that.
Right,
and of course, the first someone was a different story. The issue wasn't over there because of a wife. There was a different issue. It sounds like more political, that he had relations with all of the different kingdoms around. That was a different issue. But as far as having relations, probably he only had a point to his owner, and a king also. Even if he had, the Pasha says, even if he had many wives, he wouldn't be with all of them constantly. If he has an owner once a week, it doesn't mean that he had relations with all of them. according to his time, if it's once a week, so then it would divide it. If he has 18 wives, it'll be once every 18 weeks. That would be the pashtus. There is a Gemara that says that David HaMelech was Mekayim Ona with all of his wives. That he has to be extra strong, but that's not the pashtus pshat. The pashtus pshat Gemara says that a person is not mechuyev to have Ona only according to his strength, and if he has many wives, then it's divided divided amongst them. So that's the 2 points the Gemara said about that. The first thing about our Mishnah, the first Mishnah, that talks about that he shouldn't take more wives than he could afford, and even if financially he could afford it, but also he shouldn't take more than he'd be able to. This is a Eitzah Tova that he should be able to give Ona at least once a month. The next Mishnah spoke about if somebody has two wives, so then the Yibum Wachalitz is only done to one of them, and the other one goes free. The other one can marry out. We had this concept many times, but here's where the Mishnah actually says it. So here, the rest of the Gemara here is going to be the drushes. Not about. It's not going to challenge. It's not going to they say different than the Mishnah, but it's going to be the drushes for each point. Means if he has two wives, the Gemara is going to go through a few possibilities. Maybe we'll highlight it as we go along. The Gemara is going to talk about the Yavim L'Tarvayu, and then Nachlotz L'Tarvayu. We'll see as we go along, and we'll see more as we go. Yavim L'Chad V'Nachlotz L'Chad. The Gemara is going to say, how come you're saying that you only do Yibum Machalitza to one of them, the other one automatically can marry out? The first kash is, maybe this is into Yibum to both of them. Who says that the halach is only to do Yibum to one of the two wives, one of the co-wives? Maybe supposed to do Yibum to both of them. The pasuk talks about Yibum, so it says that that they do Chalutz Hanal. So it says that the problem is that he didn't build his brother's home. It doesn't say homes. It says in singular. There's no din for a brother to build two houses for his brother, for his dead brother. Only one house. So even though he had two wives, it's only a mitzvah to build up one of them. He doesn't have to build up both of them. So therefore, he just takes one of the wives. Not Yibum to both of them. The kash is maybe if he does chalitza, he should have to give chalitza to both of them. If he does Yibum, then you're right, Yibum to one of them. But maybe if he does chalitza, maybe he has to give chalitza to both of them in order to free them. It talks about the person who did chalitza that in the question Mobi Israel based chalutzanal. He's the family that the brother, the live brother is the one who his shoe was removed. That he only does one time. It's only called the house. He's called the house. It's not called two houses. So the yavam who's going to do chalitza, the brother-in-law does chalitza, is only a one-time chalitza. He doesn't do two chalitzas for the same brother. The third
Why marry four wives, not
no. They're too much nice. The first Mishnah is talking about that two brothers died, each one had a wife, or four brothers died, each one had a wife. So over there, there's a din to each one. Here we're talking about this one brother that died that had two wives. Two different sides altogether. That's a din, and not to be confused. The Mishnah at the beginning was talking about that he had many brothers that died, so he has to do even more chalitza to each one of the brothers. And now it's talking about one brother died, then he had two wives. So over there, there's only a din to do even more chalitza to one of them. And the Gemara now is working it out. Even to both? No. Chalitza to both? Also not. Next question. Now here it's a little helpful to do the Bach over here. The Bach has another gears over here that helps us. So here it goes. V'nachlotz lechada u'leyabim lechada. Maybe give one chalitza and then one yibum. The Gemara is going to ask afterwards other order. First the yibum, then do chalitza. First the Gemara Zakasha, first do chalitza, then yibum. And that the Gemara answers that once he didn't build a house by doing chalitza, so then there's no din to build anymore. So not only to the same woman, even to a different woman, a co-wife. So there's no din that he should first do chalitza and then do yibum. Now the Gemara asks the other way, so let him do yibum first and then do chalitza. If he did chalitza first, that the Bach took care of, the Bach said that he can't do chalitza. Once he did chalitza, there's no din to do yibum on the second wife. But maybe do yibum first and then chalitza. Amakron lo yachbotz. That it says when does he do chalitza if he doesn't want to do yibum? That means that chalitza is always a substitute if he could do yibum. A chaf is yibum. It has to be that when he does chalitza, if he wants to, he has the option of doing yibum, and he chose to do chalitza. That we only allow, or there's only a din of chalitza when he could do yibum if he wants to. But here we're saying he can't do yibum. We're saying that after he did yibum to the first one, he can't do yibum to the second one anymore. So there's no possibility to do chalitza either because this is the case that she's not older yibum, she's not older chalitza. There's a guess over here that Tosha takes out from here. Let me just put it in parentheses. Tosha takes all this out. Here it says in the guess that we have, All this Taisa takes out about about 3 lines. It says that, we'll read it, then I'll say why it can't be. Taisa says, it says, it can't be that people should think that but that's supposed to be done, that one is built, means one is Yibum or one is Chalitza. And the Master Kasha, what's the problem? Let them say so. If he would do Yibum and then Chalitza, then fine. But it could be Taisus is going without the Bach's Girsa, and he says that there's a Chash Rabbanan. Means in the Girsa that the Bach put in, that the Gemara first explained why you can't do Chalitza and then Yibum. So then we could say that the Gemara does make sense. Maybe, I'm not sure. That the Gemara is asking, okay, so but do it this order. Do first Yibum and then Chalitza. You can't do Chalitza first and then Yibum. Now we have a pasuk for. But maybe do Yibum and then Chalitza. So the Gemara says, there might be people who do the other order. They might do Chalitza and then Yibum. And that's why reason not to do Yibum and then Chalitza, because they might confuse it. It says the guess it can be, because it can't be if the rice the Torah says you have to do Yibum and then Chalitza, we can't say Midrabanan is a chash and no, don't do it.
Yeah.
That's what. So Tais takes out the Gersa. Okay, I take it back. Even according to the Bas Gersa, Tais says it doesn't make sense, because you can't say that the Rabbanan Gezer is going to take away the mitzvah, the chi of the Raisa. If the Raisa, the Gemara is entertaining the possibility that you have to do Yibum and then Chalitza, so the more can't answer, no, don't do it, because the people might make a mistake and do Chalitza and then Yibum. It's a very nice problem, but you can't say because of that, don't do anything. The Torah says that she's Chayav Chalitza, the second one's Chayav Chalitza. So Tais takes all this out.
It's supposed to be Mayabim.
If we're talking about it, there are 2 co-wives, and the halacha really is that he doesn't do to the second one. The Gemara says, the possibility, maybe the Torah says he should do to the second one also Chalitza, and the Gemara says, Rabbanan not, that yes, it doesn't make sense. It says, because if the Rai says he has to do to both of them, Yibum to one, Chalitza to the other one, the Gemara can't answer, but Rabbanan there's a problem. So Taisa takes out these 3 lines. The Gemara continues with another problem. Maybe after we have all these rushes, that then there's no din to have Yibum if there are 2 wives. The Ema, Ki Ika, Chada Teskai Misasibum, Ki Katati, Lo Teskai Misasibum. Maybe there's no din of Yibum if there are 2 wives. The truth is that there's a mitzvah to do Yibum to at least to one of them. What have we been saying?
That you can marry one of those wives and not the other one. The other one goes free.
That's what the Mishnah says, and that's what we're learning. And the more is challenging it. The more is asking, maybe there's no din of Yibum at all. When there are 2 wives, there's no Yibum at all to either one of them. And that the Gemara tries to answer in Cain. We had in the beginning of the Masechta pasuk to learn out that when there's one of the 2 wives is an erva and is a co-wife, just like the erva, there's no yibum to the co-wife either. So if the pasuk has to talk about the fact when there's a co-wife, and if she's a co-wife of an erva, there's no yibum. Mashma, if there will be a co-wife that's not an erva, then there would be yibum. If any 2 co-wives, there's no din to do anything. If according to this entertainment that the Gemara is presenting, so then the pasuk wouldn't have to talk about the tzor of an erva. Even the tzor not of an erva doesn't have any yibum chalitza. It must be that regular tzoros do have chalitza yibum to one of them, and tzor erva is different. But the Gemara says that wouldn't be a reason. Alam Allah, what's the problem? It could be that really by 2 tzoros there's no din of yibum chalitza at all. But if there's a tzor erva, then the pasuk says the possibility maybe there would be yibum or the chalitza to the tzara. Itzrich, it is necessary. Maybe regular 2 tzaras, if both of them fall to yibum, there's no din to do anything. Both of them go out without anything. But if one of them is an erva, so then the erva doesn't count. It's as if only the co-wife is present, and therefore you might think that you should do yibum or chalitza to the tzara, to this, because she's not considered a tzara. The fact that the other one is not the parsha at all. So therefore, it's also not a proof that there's no din to do that maybe we could say that there's no din of yibum or chalitza at all when there are 2 co-wives. Ella yevimta riba. That you need a pasuk to be marba this, but it says many times the word yevama. It does say many times in the parsha to be marba that there is a din of yibum or chalitza even when there are co-wives. So the Gemara didn't change anything. All this Gemara just explained the drasha. How do we know it? The halacha again stays the way we started in the Mishnah, that when there are 2 co-wives, so it has to be done yibum or chalitza only to one of them, whichever one he chooses. And the other one could marry out without any further. They want to entertain the possibilities. Maybe do even to both of them. Maybe do chalitza to both of them. Maybe do chalitza to one, even to the second. Maybe do even to the first and chalitza to the second. And maybe they don't need anything. Maybe if there are two co-wives, don't need anything. And the Gemara knocked down with psukim all of these possibilities, and it comes out the way the Mishnah said, the way we know for a long time already, when there are two co-wives, chalitza or yibum is done to one of them, and the other one goes without anything. The last part of the Mishnah said, the top line of the Mishnah said that if he's doing chalitza to one of two co-wives and one of them happens to anyway be pasal lakuna, he shouldn't give her chalitza because he should give her chalitza and not to the kosher one. And the Commissioner didn't say why. We spoke about it already. Here's the Gemara. Amar Rav Yosef Kanchan Rebbe Lo Yishpach Adam Meiboro B'Chem Tzricham Lam. That a person shouldn't spill out his wastewater or not Meiboro. Meiboro means his well water and he doesn't need it. He has extra water that he doesn't need, and other people do need it. So he shouldn't waste it, even though he doesn't need it. So it's not baltashkas for him, but other people could use it. So if you're throwing out something, Pesach cleaning, whatever, you throw all kinds of things out. If it's something someone might find use for, so don't throw it out into the garbage. Leave it outside the garbage room. That if somebody's passing by, he might be able to use it. I guess that whatever application you could say, give it to a gemach, whatever the case would be, even though you don't need it, but somebody else could use it. So too, there's a woman that is a kosher tikuna, and why should he make her apostle tikuna for no reason? Better do chalitza to the one who's apostle anyway.
Who is already not
anyway apostle tikuna.
puzzled.
To go back if you somehow jumped a couple of pages.
Someone that said that if you have an empty spot in your car and you pass it by, someone wants to trim, you have to go trim.
If it doesn't, here's someone that doesn't bother him at all. No difference. If it's a reason why it is something difficult for him, so then they have to talk about how much chesed and how much person has to go out to do chesed. But here it's a chiddush. Here it's less of a chiddush that he doesn't bother him at all. He's not. He has to do something. He has to give police to one of them. But why waste it if somebody else could use it?
I must have learned this in the past past years because I remember the case. I remember something about water, or at least I thought about it.
It says here, you're not from the base. We had it here. It says we had it before on DAF 11, DAF 12. It said at this point that it says Kanchan Rebbe. So you have this. This is the same Gemara that was quoted. How many pages ago? About 30 pages ago, a month ago. Okay. Next Mishnah. This Mishnah talks about what's considered a mamzer. What makes somebody a mamzer? The Torah doesn't say. It just says mamzer. What's a mamzer? What makes somebody to be considered a mamzer? So what?
Born out of wedlock or
so that's very broad. That's very broad. To say that some of the marriages is asur, there are many levels of isur. There's isur chayve lav, and there's chayve krisus, there's chayve misas bezin. So how serious of a issue does it have to be? So that's my focus about that. Here the bishop brings down two opinions. We're going to see later on to the third opinion. Amasek yushasav, anosek chalutzasav, anosek krovas chalutzasav, yotzi bavlat mamzer div Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva's makro. We had mentioned Rabbi Kiva once upon a time that he holds that the ish mamzer b'chayve lavin. That even on those places where it says don't do it, it's like do not. But it doesn't.
But not even krisa.
It's not even chayv krisa. It's not. It's really not chayv misas bezin. Rabbi Kiva holds that the child born of such a union is also going to be a mamzer. And he gives a few examples. Amasek yushasav means that a man took back his divorcee after she had remarried. It means a person divorces a woman is allowed to marry her back. But if she married somebody else, then she got divorced or bewildered from him, then he's not allowed to take her back. That's called masik rishos. So that's a fresh pasuk in the Torah. Lo yuchal ba'lo rishon nashel l'kochol. So that's so if he did take her back, he divorced her, she married somebody else, and then he divorced her or he died. And he takes her back. That's chayv elav, and that yivin shalabana shuv lo yivne. So lo yivne is called the lo sase. That once he decided to do chalitza, he did chalitza. He can't marry her anymore, and he did. So he transgressed the law. So according to Rabbi Akiva, also the child's going to be a mamzer. A new case, and no say krovas chalitza. So the relative, usually we call it the sister or whatever, the mother, the daughter, but we call it the sister just for simplicity. He marries the achos chalutza. So the part the most we talk about is that this is only Rabbana. We had the Mishnah not so long ago, yesterday, the day before, that this is only Drabanan. Achos chalutza is only Drabanan because it looks like a achos ishto. Once he gave chalitza to a woman, so it looks similar to a would have divorced her, and then he's not allowed to marry his divorcee's sister. That's like a achos ishto. That only as long as it's b'chayah, as long as his wife is still alive, he's not allowed to marry her sister. Even if he divorces his wife, he can't marry her sister. And here, a chalutza after you get chalutza. So if you married a sister, it looks like he's marrying his divorcee's wife, a sister, and that's a chayv koros. So the problem is that this is only Rabbanan. Here's only Gzeira Chalutza to Grusha. The more is right away going to jump on it. That how could the Rabbi Kippur say that the child is a mamzer? It's only Isser Rabbanan. On Isser of the union, which is only Rabbanan, surely the kid's not going to be a mamzer. So that's going to be probably the more is going to ask. But so far, in general, the Kippur said that Yesh mamzer Mechayv Lavin. He has to, of course, he has to divorce her because they're not allowed to remain together. And the child's a mamzer because the Kippur holds Yesh mamzer Mechayv Lavin, that the union, the child born of a union of Chayv Lavin, also makes the child a mamzer. The Chachamim say no. And of that mamzer, and the point is because only if it's chayv creases. The Rabbanan say the chayv lam is not enough to make the child a mamzer, only if the union was chayv creases. But they do agree to the first case Rabbi Kiva said, are not mamzer. No case. He didn't say any of these cases. But krobas grushasa means like achos grushasa. He married the sister of his divorcee. So that's mamish that's a chiv kares. That's to marry a woman and her sister, as long as it's bechayah, as long as she's still alive, so it's a chayv kares. So here they do agree that chayv krisis is a mamzer. So doesn't make a difference as long as bechayah, as long as his wife's still alive. After the wife dies, he's allowed to take his sister, but as long as she's still alive, even if the divorce, he's not allowed to, and that's chayv kares. And the Rabbanan moed that chayv kares is going to be Vlad mamzer. So if we would take the Mishnah and look at it into our own words, it would say that Rabbi Kiva holds that yesh mamzer mechayv lavin, and the Rabbanan say no, only mechayv krisis. So a simple Mishnah, what makes a mamzer? According to Rabbanan, that's why we pass Dafka chayv krisis, and according to Rabbi Kiva, even chayv lavin, which is less, also the kid is a mamzer. So the Gemara's going to be the Gemara's problem is going to be this point we said about Hanosei Krobas Chalutza. So Krobas Chalutza holds only Rabbanan. The sister of the Chalutza, it's not really wasn't his wife, wasn't his divorcee, just it was a Chalutza. And we said before that Chos Chalutza is only Rabbanan. The sub Rabbi Kiva Hanosei Krobas Chalutza, so of Vlad mamzer. Does Rabbi Kiva hold that if somebody marries the sister, the relative, the sister of his chalutza, the child is a mamzer? It's not even the raisa. Not so long ago, it says in the side here, that that to marry the sister of his divorcee, that's the raisa. But to marry the sister of the chalutza is only the rabbanan. So how could Rabbi Kiva say that the child born is a mamzer? So the Gemara first tries to change it. Tani krobas grushasa. The Gemara tries to edit the Mishnah and say you're right. Doesn't mean that. It means krobas grushasa, which is really high. That's the right. So that's high chorus even. So he gave an example even of high chorus. So Rabbi Kiva, according to this shot, Rabbi Kiva would have given some examples of high lavin and one example of high chorus, and he said these are going to be the child's mamzer. But he didn't mention, of course, it's only Rabbanan, and surely it's not going to be. If it will be achos chalutzasa, then surely it's only Rabbanan, and Rabbi Kiva wouldn't have said about that. Let us highlight it to make it what we're focused on over here. It says in the Mishnah, Krovas Chalutzasa. And the Gemara is changing it to Krovas Girushasa. The Gemara changed these words. That it said, I know it's a Krovas Chalutzasa, that can't be. It can't be a Vlad mamzer on Krovas Chalutzasa, on Rabbanan. So the Gemara tries to change it to Krovas Girushasa. That's the case, that's going to be the Raisa, and that happens to be even the Chayv Koris. Okay, now
He doesn't hold that. He doesn't hold that even.
it's a what?
To marry the Krovas Chalutza.
Krovas Chalutzasa, the most asking is only the Rabbanan.
I understand, but isn't the Rebbe Kiva take the lechatchila?
No one holds that Rabbanan is going to be a mamzer. We spoke about Chayv Lavin, Chayv Koris, Chayv Mrs. Bezin, but everything's Chayv Lavin, that is the Raisa. But now at Rabbanan, sure is not going to be a mamzer from a union of Issa Rabbanan. So that's the concept. The way the Mishnah says, Krovas Chalutzasa is Rabbanan. How can Rabbi Kiva say that the child is a mamzer? So the more changes it. He doesn't take out the word Krovas Chalutzasa, it should read Krovas Girushasa, and that's really serious. It's even more than a Chayv Lavin, it's a Chayv Krisis, the wife's sister. So a Grusha sister, no difference if you divorced her. So that's how the Gemara suggests to change the Mishnah. And the Gemara wants to support it. Even we have to change it. We can't leave the way it says it. Tiktani Sefer, Omodim Benosei Krovas Girushasa. Here, the end of the Mishnah, the Gemara points to the end of the Mishnah. Look what it says at the end of the Mishnah. Omodim Benosei Krovas Girushasa Shav Lad Mam. So they want to agree to Rabbi Kiva by Krovas Girushasa. If he didn't talk about it, how come they're saying he's Modem? That it wouldn't make sense that they say Modem if he didn't speak about it. In the list that he said, He said Masik Gushaso. He said no se chalutzaso. He said no se krovas chalutzaso. Why did they bring in krovas gushaso? No one spoke about it. If it must be that you have to change the gears in the ratio, but keep it this speak about it. That was the third case that he said. And the Rabbanan say we don't agree to the first two cases that he said because it's only a chayv lavin. But the third case, which is a chayv kavos, we do agree to it. So it must be that you have to change the gears. But the Gemara rejects that proof. The Dilmo Hakamashma on the Yesh Rams and the chayv krisos. Maybe they give in. Maybe he didn't mention. Leave the gears the way it is. But Kiva did not mention krovas gushaso. And they say all of your three examples we don't agree to, but krovas gushaso we would agree to because it's a chayv kavos. And that's what. And the simple pshat, like we said, that's what they're coming to say. That even though chayv lavin we don't agree, but chayv krisos we would agree, even though he didn't mention it. But that the Gemara says is a mission of Beferish later on. Katani Lola Kamon, Ezel Mamza, called Shea Bosa, Shu below Yabba, Divri Abakiva, Rab Shimon Atim the Omer, called Shechavan of Koris B'dei Valacha Kidvarov. This point to say that Chayve Lavin, that the Machokas of Chayve Lavin, the Chayve Koris, you don't need our mission because it's a mission later on. Mission later on, it says on the side, Daf Mem Tes, not so much ahead, that it says that according to Rab Akiva, Chayve Lavin already makes mamzer, any culture which is a lo yavo, any issue that it says don't have relations, that's allowed. And according to Akiva, the child is a mamzer. But Shimon Atimni, it does not Taimani. Shimon Atimni from the place called Timnas, not from Taiman. So Shimon Atimni, he said that only if it's chayv kores, then the kid is going to be a mamzer, and that's the halacha. So this machlokas already we have later on. So what is our Mishnah coming to tell us? The Gemara thinks that it must be that Rabbi Akiva mentioned krovas gushaso in order to say that they're abundant amoda to him. But maybe you're right that the Mishnah is coming to repeat the same thing it's going to say later on, and it just wants to say that it has to be chayv kores, and that's why I brought in the case of krovas gushaso. Not that Rabbi Akiva mentioned it. If so, the Gemara thinks that it shouldn't have said this example. If he just means to say in general that his chayv kores is remoded as a mamzer, they shouldn't have given an example that Rabbi Akiva didn't speak about. If he spoke about it, then it would make sense that they say that he's the moder. But if they didn't speak about it, it wouldn't make sense that Rabbi didn't speak on one case of krovas gushaso. They should have just said in general chayv krisos. It must be Rabbi Akiva spoke about it. But still, the Gemara doesn't give in. The dilma la'olam lo ariba, maybe don't change. It's not a reason to change the gears. Leave the gears the way it is. Krovas chalutzaso. So why did Rabbanan bring in krovas gushaso, which wasn't spoken about? I did tana masik gushaso, but no se chalutzaso, but krovas chalutzaso, tani nami krovas gushaso. It is similar to the point. It's not the same case that Akiva spoke about, but he did speak about krovas chalutzaso. He also said something about masik. No, I don't think the masik gushaso is the point, but the point is krovas chalutzaso. Since he said krovas chalutzaso, so they said something which is similar. Not krovas chalutzaso. That's going to be. That's not going to be a mamzer, but krovas gushaso is. So after all that, the Gemara is not convinced to change the gersa. The truth is the Gemara just disproves the hachinami mistavra. But once the Gemara knocked that down, the Gemara doesn't want to change it. The Gemara doesn't like to change the gersa, and it goes back to what I said before. We'll just erase this. We're not going to say any more krovas gushaso. We're going to leave it the way it says krovas chalutzaso. And the question goes back to the beginning, back to the first base. The kasha was, how could Rabbi Akiva say that krovas chalutzaso, the kid is a mamzer? It's only a rabbanan. And the Gemara answers, Ella, Krovas Chalutzaso, Rabbi Akiva, every mamzer. The way it said it originally, that Rabbi Akiva does hold that the child is a mamzer. The kasha was it's only Rabbanan. Comes a big chiddush. Amri Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yochanan, Hainu Tamid Rabbi Akiva, Damar Kro, Beis Chalutzano, Lakosev, Koro Beiso. So a big chiddush, and it comes out that Rabbi Akiva does hold that it's a mamzer, and he holds it's not Rabbanan. Till now, we learned the whole time, like it started the Gemara, Kanchan, or Rebbe, that a chos chalutz is only Rabbanan, but it comes out Rabbi Akiva argues on that we do all that chalos chalutz is only Rabbanan, but Rabbi Akiva happens to hold that it's the Raisa, and happens to be not even the Raisa. He even happens to hold that it's chayv kores because he considers it his wife. Beis chalutz hanal means he did chalitza, and it calls beis chalutz hanal, and the Gemara's dashing seems to be a drasha that the woman that he did chalitza to is called his house, is called his family. That means he gave chalitza to someone who was part of his home. That means that the deceased brother's wife is considered also the yevam's wife, and when he gives chalitza, it's considered her sister is going to be considered a chos gushaso, and it comes out before that it's for sure the rice. That's what the Gemara is saying, and happens to be an interesting point that I didn't see stressed over here, that it isn't only Rabbi Akiva l'shitaso that says that chayv lavin is going to be mamzer, but even if he would have held that only chayv krisos is a chavlad mamzer, he holds that this is a chayv krisos. So it's two machlokas going on. One is what makes a mamzer, chayv lavin, chayv krisos. And now Rabbi Akiva is saying that I happen to hold that this case is even a chayv krisos, even according to you, who argue on me and hold that a chayv krisos is Chayv Lavan is not going to be a mamzer, but a Chayv Krisus you do agree. And I hold that a Achos Chalutza is also Chayv Krisus. The Rabbanan arguing that also. The Rabbanan are going to say that Achos Chalutza is not the rice, only the Rabbanan. But that was Rabbi Akiva's opinion. So it took all this time. What we come out with, that when the Mishnah says, according to Rabbi Akiva, Krovas Chalutzasa was a Vlad Mamzer, he means it. Keep the gears the way it says, and he holds that it's not Rabbanan, it happens to be the Raisa, it happens to be a Chayiv Kores, because the Pasuk is mashma, based Chalutza know that she's considered his family, that he was Cholitz to, and it's like a Chos Rusha. So if he marries her sister, it'll be like he married his ex-wife's sister. There's now his ex-Chalutza. There used to be a yevama, a zika, and now that he gave her chalitza, it's like he divorced his wife, and he's not allowed to marry his sister. And it's like chayv koros. And the Rabbanan are going to argue on both things. They say that chayv lavan is not chayv, is not a mamzer, and it happens to be they don't agree to this either. And they hold that krovas chalitza is only the Rabbanan. The bottom line starts a new sugya. What's that? Bottom line. I'm Rav Yosef. Daf Mem Dalet. The bottom line. I'm Rav Yosef. So we learned that according to Rabbanan, that Chayv Lavan is not a mamzer. That it's also for a man to have relations with Chayv Lavan. The example Chamasik Rushasa, that he divorced a woman, she remarried, and then he's gonna, and then after a divorce or she becomes a widow, so then he's not allowed to take her back anymore. And if he did, it's a Chayv Lavan. But Rabbanan say, but the child born from that, if he did take her back, the child born of that union is not going to be a mamzer. And the rest of the Gemara we'll talk about now. Okay, he's not a mamzer, but is he kosher mamish that the child will be mutter to marry a Kohen? If the child is a girl, would it be mutter for her to marry a Kohen, or it is called a pagam that the child becomes possible to marry a Kohen? That we know that a Kohen has more restrictions of who he's allowed to marry. So even if he's not a mamzer and it's mutter for a Jew, a Yisrael to marry, but maybe a Kohen is not allowed to. That's the rest of the sugya today. Bottom line, I'm Rav Yosef. So first the Gemara starts off with one version of Rav Yosef, and after a while the Gemara is going to change it. But first we'll say what it says. I'm Rav Shimon bar Rebbe. I'm Rav Yosef. I'm Rav Shimon bar Rebbe. Hakol modim b'masik v'shaso shavlad pogam lakuna. Everybody does agree. What's that? Everybody agrees that even though the Rabbanan say in our mission that the vlad is not a mamzer, which means it's also to marry any Jew, only those that are mamzer is allowed to marry. But the vlad is pogum lakuna. Pogum means blemished for a Kohen. That if the child is a girl, she's not allowed to marry a Kohen.
So we're saying the husband is a Kohen?
She's not allowed to marry a Kohen. A person, nothing. No. These the fathers, no, nothing to do with that. Pagam Lakuna means that she can't marry a Kohen. A man, a Yisrael, he married a woman. He divorced her. She married somebody else. He divorced her. He married her back again. They had a child, and she's a girl. And now she wants to marry a Kohen when she grows up. She can't. She's Pagam Lakuna. She's not a mamzer. According to Bakiva, she's a mamzer. She could have Chayv Lavan because the father and the mother, the union was a Issa, the Raisa, so she's a mamzer. According to Rabbanan, she's not a mamzer. But Rav Yosef says in the name of Rav Shimon bar Rebbe, even though she's not a mamzer, but she can't marry a Kohen. Manakol Modim. What does he mean to say? Like we just said, even according to those who hold that it's not a mamzer. Shimon Atimni, but that's what they're saying. The Shimon Atimni holds that only Chayv Krisus the vlad is a mamzer. I forgot that Shimon Atimni ain't mamzer Chayv Lavan. So this child is not going to be a mamzer. Neither mamzer lo havi, pogam havi. Even though it's not a mamzer, but it's pogam not allowed to marry a Kohen. And where does he get it from? Where's the source of this halacha that it can't marry a Kohen? Mikal v'chomer me'al mana l'kohen gadol. We'll just underline it because later on we're going to talk about this again. Maybe we'll underline a couple of things here. The first thing he says, mikal v'chomer me'al mana l'kohen gadol. Ma'al mana l'kohen gadol she'eni surah shava b'kol b'no pogam. We do know that if a Kohen marries almana, a widow, and he's not kohen gadol, he's not allowed to marry an almana. And if he does, the child is if he does, so then the child is going to be cholo. The word cholo is somebody is not allowed to marry a Kohen. Cholo. They loses his kuna, and the cholola cannot marry a Kohen. So we see that if there's a chayv lavan over there, the Kohen gadol to marry a widow is allowed, and the child over there born is pasal tikuna. So that's a kal v'chomer now. The Isser for a Kohen is very limited. Only a Kohen. It's not a blanket Isser. It's only for Kohen and not for Israel. Israel are allowed to marry a widow. Only a Kohen is not Kohen Gadol. Even a Kohen is allowed to. Even a Kohen Gadol is not allowed to. Only Kohen Gadol is not allowed to. So if that Isser, which is a very delicate Isser, it only applies to a Kohen Gadol, but it makes the child pasal tikuna. So Kavachomer, a law which applies to everybody, a regular law that applies to all Israelim, surely the child born of that union is going to be Pagam Lakuna, even though it's not a mamzer, but it's going to be Pagam Lakuna. Ma Kamal can go the Shani Surah Shabbat Bakol. The no Pagam, Zushe, Surah Shabbat Bakol applies to everybody, all Jews, and Adin Shabbat Pagam. Is it not a Kavachomer that surely the child is Pasal Tikuna? That was Rabbi Yosef's drasha in the name of Rabbi Shimon bar Rebbe, that even those who hold that the child born of a Chavi Lavan is not a mamzer, but it is Pasal Tikuna, and the source was Kavachomer Me'amana L'Kohen Gadol. Tomorrow's a couple of kashas on this. We'll just highlight the kashas as we go along. They're going to be 3 kashas, and then the Gemara is going to answer the kashas 1, 2, 3, and then it's going to go 3, 2, 1. The answer, the replies, the responses to the 3 kashas is going to be in opposite order. We're going to ask 1, 2, and 3, and then we're going to answer, or at least respond in the order of 3, 2, and 1, and we'll see what we're left with. So here, they're going to just change the color for the kashas now. The Gemara has 3 kashas on this. First of all, Ikela Mifrach. Ma la'almana shekeni yatzma meschalel. Says kasha number 1, that it's not a good kal v'chomer, because we do see the kal v'chomer, we do see that almana, the Kohen Gadol, has some severity that you don't find by other Lavan. When the Kohen Gadol has relations with the widow, not only is the child puzzled, the woman herself becomes puzzled to a Kohen. She herself, the widow, now that she had relations with the Kohen Gadol, she becomes a halala, and she can't marry a Kohen anymore. So that's a severity that you see by this halacha of a Amal Kohen Gadol, which doesn't apply to other Isurim. When the woman, let's say in this case of Masik Grushasa, it happens to be she's a Grush anyway, she can't marry a Kohen, but she doesn't become Nifsal because of the Isser that there was a Chai B'Lavin happened. And she could marry the Kohen Gadol, let's say. No, she can't, she's a Grush anyway. But besides the technicality, but any Chai B'Lavin doesn't cause that the woman herself becomes puzzled to Kohen. Only the child born you can talk about. So you can't learn from Kal V'chomer, because over there it's worse. That's always a pirch on the Kal V'chomer. Kal V'chomer you put on the scale, one is light and one is heavy. But if we say that the one that you think is light is not so light, it has a heaviness that the other one doesn't have, so you can't make a Kal V'chomer. It's not lighter than the other one. That's kasha number 1. Kasha number 2, v'od hi to'eva ksiv v'ein baneha to'eva. This kasha is kasha number 2. V'od, it says in the pasuk by Masik Rushaso, it says that ki to'eva hi, that it's an abomination to take back the wife after she had remarried. So the pasuk says he, to'eva he, and there's an extra word over there to say this is an abomination, and there's something to exclude. Maybe we should dash from there that only she becomes asa, she becomes a to'eva, she's considered an abomination. The woman herself that there was that he had relations with, the Masik Rushaso, but the child not. If it says perish in the pasuk according to the drash that the children are not, that means that the pasuk is against you. You're saying that the vlad is pagam lakuna, but the pasuk is coming to teach us that the child is not an abomination, doesn't become pasal takuna. That was kasha number 2. And the third kasha is going to be from a brisa that seems to say beferish that the child is kosher to kahuna. Va'od Tanya. And also we have a brisa. This brisa is going to be in Machlokes Rabbi Akiva and Rabbanan about our subject about Chai Ben Lavan, if the child's a mamzer or not. And it seems that's going to say that it's even kosher lakuna. Hamasik Rushasa, Vanosek Halutzasa, Vanosek Krovas Halutzasa. All word for word of our Mishnah, the 3 cases that our Mishnah says, and not the way the Gemara we want to change it before. Hamasik Rushasa was a Chai Lavin, Nosek Halutzasa, also Chai Lavin, the Shuvla Yivne, Hanosek Krovas Halutzasa, which we spoke about that it's Rabbanan, but Rabbi Akiva holds that as Daraisa. Rabbi Akiva Omer Ein Lo Bo Kedushin, that marries this him, the marriage does not take effect. Because the marriage doesn't take effect, and therefore he doesn't have to give her a get because the kedushin didn't take place. But they're not going to argue. They're going to say that the kedushin does take place by chayvei lavan. Only chayvei krisus not. But if Akiva holds that chayvei lavan also the kedushin doesn't take effect, there's no get necessary because the marriage was nothing. The hipsula uvlad apostle, the woman herself becomes puzzled by having this relationship because he holds chayvei lavan is as severe as chayvei krisus. Uvlad apostle. And the child is puzzled. The child is a mamzer. Now we know that if Kiva holds in our Mishnah, the child is a mamzer. The kofan also lahotzi, and we force him to divorce it because he's married to a chayvei lavan. All this is very similar to our Mishnah. That said, according to Rabbi Kiva, chayvei lavan is vlad mamzer. It said a little bit more. It said she's puzzled, kid's puzzled. But they don't need to get because it's not considered a marriage at all. This is the chamam of our Mishnah that say that no, there's no mamzer from chayvei lavan. Yesh lo kedushin, since it's only chayvei lavan, so the kedushin does take effect. You're not supposed to, but if you married her, so it does take effect. They're married. Tzricha menu get. In order to stop the marriage, terminate it, they have to have a get because the marriage does take effect. V'hi kashera uvlada kosher. This is what we're going to underline. V'lada kosher. She's kosher means since it's only chayvei lavan, she doesn't become nifsal by that via, and the child is kosher. The Gemara thinks that's the end of the brisa. The Gemara thinks that it says beferish over here that according to Rabbanan, not only is the child not a mamzer, the child is kosher. Kosher means even for a kohen. That's what the Gemara is going to try to learn out of this brisa. So let's make this. Let's make it also highlighted. This is the kasha number 3. That here it says in the brisa, below the kosher and leman. Who's he kosher to? Lav lakuna doesn't mean that's kosher even to marry a kohen. That's against Rav Yosef and Amar Rav Shimon ben Rebbe. He said on the top line that the vlad is plugum lakuna. Top line over here, and here the brisa says that is not. It says it's kosher. It doesn't kosher mean even kosher to a kohen. But the Gemara tries to get out of this. Lo lako. Maybe it just means kosher. That's not a mamzer. It doesn't mean that it's kosher to marry a kohen. We know that Rabbanan say that it's kosher means that it's not a vlad. But to say that kosher even means that it's kosher to kohen, you don't necessarily see that. But that the mother doesn't like this because it says right before that she's kosher and he's kosher. The mother's kosher and the child is kosher. What kind of kosher is the mother? It doesn't mean she's not a mamzer. Surely it doesn't become a mamzer by becoming having relations. It doesn't make her also to everybody. It just means that she's kosher to the kohen. Because she was mazana, she becomes possible to marry anybody. Surely not. What does it mean when it says hikshera? Elalav lakuna. When it says hikshera, it means she's kosher to marry a kohen. So right away after that, it says avlad kosher also must mean to the kohen. Umidihi lakuna, ladanami lakuna. So when it says one after each other that she's kosher and he's kosher, and when it says he's kosher, it means he's even kosher to marry a kohen. So when it says the son is kosher, the son, the daughter, so it also means tikuna. But the Gemara is not impressed with that. Midiya, no, it's not going to be a proof. How kadisa v'ak kadisa? Even though it says one after the other, it could mean she's kosher to a kohen. And the vlad is kosher means that it's not a mamzer. It doesn't necessarily mean that she's kosher to kuna. The hachinamim is, I'll prove to you. Don't take it so seriously. It sounds like a dochak teres that it means he's kosher and she's kosher. Two kinds of kosher. This is the kosher. Understand that even kosher to kohen. This is kosher only that the vlad is not a mamzer. So it sounds like a dochak, but the Gemara says no, not so dochak. Because when you go back to the beginning, let's go 2 lines earlier. It says over there. It says right before that. It says he psula, according to Rabbi Akiva, it says he psula of vlad pasal. Let's analyze by ourselves. According to Rabbi Akiva, that the Chayv Yelavan makes that the vlad is a mamzer. Does she become a mamzer? She doesn't become the woman herself. He had relationships with a woman that's a Chayv. She doesn't become a mamzer. You don't become a mamzer. So when it says he psula, that means that she's no, the woman. It says the mother's pasal and the child is pasal. When it says the mother's pasal over there, it means tikuna. When it says the child is pasal, over there, surely means a mamzer. Because if Kiva says it's a mamzer. So you see that even though it says she's pasal, he's pasal, it doesn't mean the same level. So don't be so impressed. Don't be so impressed. Don't be so bothered. I'm sorry. Don't be bothered if it says he kshera of vlad kosher. It doesn't mean the same kind of kosher. The same way where he says pasal, it's 2 different kinds of psulim. When it says kosher, also doesn't mean it's the same kind of kashrus. So that's the Gemara's proof over here. Where are we? I can prove that it's not a problem that it says kosher, that it means the same kashrus. Tiktani reishi psula v'lada pasal by Rabbi Akiva says both of them are pasal. He psula l'man. Who she pasal to? The ilay mulakol. She becomes pasal to marry anybody. Mishum dezanya. If sallalay l'kol, because she was mizana, she's pasal to marry anybody. It's not true. Elav l'kuna. When it says pasal, she's pasal to marry kohen. And then when it says vlad pasal, what does that mean? L'man ilay mulakuna l'kol kasher. I'm Rabbi Akiva vlad mamzer. We have a fresh mishnah that Rabbi Akiva holds that the child is a mamzer. So you see when it says she's pasal, he's pasal, it's 2 different psulim. She's pasal to kuna. And he's possible to anybody. So the Gemara is not bothered by this brisa, and we answer the kasha. So just to go back again, I'll just erase whatever is not necessary here. So we okay, too much. Go back again.
We're talking about this is a case of a kohen gadol marrying an almana.
We're talking about this Chayv Yelavan becomes possible, and the vlad also becomes possible. The child also becomes possible. Not he, she.
No, but then when the
child is possible to kuna. The child is a chollah. So not a mamzer. Rabbi Akiva would hold the mamzer also. Rabbi Akiva holds Chayv Yelavan is also a mamzer. Unless at that point doesn't say beferish over here, but we'll get to that maybe one time. But so far it doesn't say beferish. But right, that's our subject over here. So what I have to underline over here, blood kshera. So if we have here in the highlighted in the pink, we have 3 kashas. Again, on the top of the line, it says Rabbi Yosef, in the name of Rav Shimon Rebbe said that Chayv Yelavan, even according to the Rabbanan, that it's not a mamzer, but it's pagam lakuna. And now the Gemara has 3, and he learned it out from Kal V'chomer Me'almana. And the Gemara has 3 kashas. The first kasha is challenging the Kal V'chomer itself. You can't learn it from Almana because Almana is worse because she herself becomes Maschalelas. So maybe that's because it's very severe, and you can't learn out the other Chayv Laban. Second kasha was that it's a drasha that says he toeva, he. We learn out that he toeva, and maybe learn out and that the child is not a toeva. The child is not going to be bagam lakuna. And the third kasha was from the brisa, which seems to say avlad kasha. But that now we'll go backwards. The Gemara answered the third kasha first, and it said that it means lakol. So we'll just try to answer these kashas now. So this is kasha number 3. We answered that it doesn't mean avlad the kasha lakuna, it means lakol. So kasha number 3 we did answer. And now we go back. Now the Gemara is going to go back to kasha number 2, which was hito eva, and that's in the first wide line. The hito eva nami hito eva ve'en serosa toeva. That by Machzik Rishasa, we're talking about Machzik Rishasa over there, and it says that she's a Toeva, and over there the Gemara had a drasha to say that if the Tzara is going to become Asur also. So it's not our subject right now, and I'm not into it, I don't know, but the Gemara says it doesn't have a proof to say from here that he Toeva, maybe Bana is Toeva, that you can't prove from the pasuk that it says he Toeva, that the child is not going to be Asur Lakuna. It could be that the child is, yes, Pasur Lakuna, against what Rav Yosef said, and the drasha, if he is used for something else. So that takes care of kasha number 2. But kasha number 1, the Gemara said remains. Ela Almana kasha, that the Gemara doesn't have an answer for. And that was kasha number 1. We said that the Kal V'chomer itself doesn't make sense. The fact that Almana herself becomes puzzled because of this relation, this union. So that's a severity by Almana the Kohen Gadol. They don't have other Chayvei Lavan. And maybe that doesn't, the fact that the child becomes a chalal doesn't apply to all Chayvei Lavan. What about it? That's what we're talking about. That's the subject. That's the subject. Here, we'll just go back to the bottom of the page. The last Chayvei Lavan. That's the classical example of Chayvei Lavan, to take back the woman after she be married, to take her back as a Chayvei Lavan. And the question is, the kid is not a mamzer. We pass like Rabbanan, not like the child is born. If he did do that, the child born is not a mamzer. But the question is it kosher for a Kohen? Could that child, if she's a girl, could she marry a Kohen?
She can marry anybody else?
Yes, that's what he says. It's not a mamzer. That's the subject. The Mishnah talks about the subject. The way to knock it down, to categorize. The Mishnah is talking about if the child's a mamzer.
Right.
And that's machlokes according to Rabbi Kiva, yes.
Right.
And according to Rabbanan, no, only Chavi Krisos said it's not a Chavi Krisos, it's only Chavi Lavan. But now the Gemara talks about good, it's not a mamzer, but is it a cholol? Call it a cholol. Is it pasal lakuna? Is a child born of that union pasal lakuna? And first the Gemara said yes, pasal lakuna, top line, pagam lakuna. And the Gemara has 3 kashas. 2 out of 3 kashas we answered, but the first kasha we didn't answer. And the kasha the Gemara holds is a good kasha. So much so that the Gemara says Rabbi Yosef never said that he was quoted, and it is kosher lakuna. Here's the Gemara, second white line. El amana kasha, mal amana shekeni asman mischalelas. Like we said, that you can't laugh when amana l'kohen gadol because over there it's worse. It's not the kal v'chomer. It's not a kal. It's a chomer. That amana l'kohen gadol is very severe. That she becomes herself pasal tekuna. So you can't learn out to other chayvei lavan. So Eliyot Machiyot. So the Gemara makes some apecha now and change what we quoted in the first line. Before we quoted that even according to Rabbanan, Shimon HaTimni, that hold that the vlad of Chayvei Lavan is not a mamzer, but it's still a pasal lakuna, we changed that. And that, no, it's not pasal lakuna. Rabbi Yosef never said that. The child is kosher. Kosher even for Kohen. So it comes out that what the Gemara's maskana is that the child of a Chayvei Lavan is not only not a mamzer, it's not even pasal lakuna. The child can marry a Kohen.
That's where it goes.
That's where it goes. That's what, yeah. The Chayvei Lavan is not even pasal lakuna. That's what Gemara seems to say. It was, and Daf Yudaleh we have Rashi quoted a little differently. That's what our Gemara seems to come out. I think that's the halacha. Maybe I'll try to check out to make sure. That's what our Gemara says here.
Meaning a Kohen marries a Grusha to have a child, and he can marry
A child, a Kohen, no. A Kohen marries a Grusha, that's a Chayvei Lavan, and the child, no, over there, the child is Sholi Yachol. Yeah, that's not the case over here. Here the case is that Yisrael married a woman, he divorced her, she remarried, and then he took her back again.
Oh,
that's Machzik Grusha. Not a Kohen marrying a Grusha. A Machzik Grusha is a Chayvei Lavan. You're talking about a case where a Kohen married a Grusha, that's the Isur Ekun, the child is a Chala.
That means that he can't marry it.
The child cannot marry a Kohen. They lose the child. Not can marry. The child's a girl. She can't marry a Kohen. She's a
Marry
Chalal.
anybody else.
Yes. But here we're saying that this child born of Chayv Lavin, that's not Isur Kuna, Masik Shasa. So then it's not even possible to a Kohen. So this man who had a wife, divorced her, she remarried, and then he married her again. That's a Chayv Lavin, and the girl was born, so she could even marry a Kohen. So what did Rav Yosef say? If he didn't say this, what did he say? That the way we quoted Rav Yosef was wrong. Not abo al chayve lavan avlad pogum. It means abo al chayve krisos. Now we happen to hold that chayve krisos the kids even a mamzer. So this is not going to be relevant to us because we hold, like the one in the Mishnah, that the child born of chayve krisos is a mamzer, much worse than a pogum l'kun. He can't marry even a Jew, even a Yisrael. But going now according to a third opinion, which we didn't mention in our Mishnah, that some hold that a mamzer is only the result of a union of chayve Mrs. Bezdin. That's even worse. That chayve krisos, he holds the child born of chayve krisos is not a mamzer. That's a bishua coming up. Manakal Modim Abishua, Dafagav them Abishua and Mamzer Mechavi Krisis. He holds that even the union of Mechavi Krisis doesn't produce a Mamzer. Only the union of Mechavi Mrs. Bezdin, like
What's the case of Mechavi Krisis?
a sister,
Oh.
a sister-in-law.
Oh.
This parasha, Achrimos Kedoshim, but it's very interesting. Even Achrimos Kedoshim, it says the same things over again. But Achrimos, it says the Isurim, all the Erais, and then the parasha is Achrimos. And this week, parasha Kedoshim is going to say the punishments. And by some of them, it says the punishment is going to be Chayvi Mrs. Bezdin. The ones that it doesn't say, then it's only Chayvi Krisa. Sometimes it says V'nechrusa, sometimes it says what the punishment, the capital punishment. So Mamish, this is the Parsha Shavua, to learn the end of Achrimos and the end of Kedoshim, and it says over there which ones is Chayvi Krisa, which ones is Chayvi Mrs. Bezdin. So in our first Mishnah, the Masechta we had over there all I think over there all of them are Chayvi Krisa over there. So except now Kala over there is also Chayve. There were some that were even straight from. They were, yeah, at the beginning. Some of them are Chayv Misa also. Chayv Misa Bezin also, I think. Yeah, I think Kala for sure. Kala daughter-in-law is the Chayv Skila. Okay. Anyway, here it says that the Chiddush is even according to Bishua says that a mamzer is only a result of Chayv Misa's Bezdin, but Chayv Krisos, the child born is not a mamzer. But the mamzer lahavi pogam mihavi. That's what I meant to say. That even according to Rabbi Yoshua, that's more lenient, and he holds that it's only a mamzer chavi Mrs. Bezdin. But he also agrees that the child born of chavi krisis, even though he's not a mamzer, but he's a pogam. But the chavi lavin that we're talking about till now, then it's not even a pogam. It's not even possible lakuna. And how does he know this? Same thing. The kalvachomer mana. That was the kalvachomer. Mal mana lakoin gadol sheini suva shava b'kol. But no pogam. Zuse Yeshua Shava Bakol Eno Din Shebena Pogam. Over there, it's not even a Chayve Krisis; it's only a Chayve Lavin. But you see that a Amon Kohen Gadol that even though it doesn't apply to everybody, only to a Kohen Gadol, but the child is born is also to Kohen. So this person Chayve Krisis that is by all Am Yisrael, surely the child born is going to be Pogam Lakuna. And here you can ask the kasha. What was all kasha we had till now? That's not a good kavachoma because by Alman Lakan Gadol there's a severity that the woman herself, the Alman herself becomes possible now because it is bias issa. But there's no kasha. When someone has relations with a Chayvi Krisa, she does become a zona and she's possible to a Kohen. The woman herself, not only the child. So here there's no pirch on the kavachoma, and that remains. So that's the end of the sugya. And what have we learned today? Just to sum it up. And number Aleph, we spoke about that the oldest brother has the right to marry all of the yevamim. Means if there are many brothers that died, so they all fall to Yibum, and the oldest brother can marry all of them. The Gemara says only if he can afford it, and the Chatchila and the advice will not take more than 4 because you shouldn't give them too little of Ona. The next Mishnah speaks about that, and also it's then Mishnah talks about if a brother has 2 wives, one brother that died has 2 wives. So there's only chalitza even to one of them, the other one goes free. The Gemara says all the drushes about that. You don't say both of them got chalitza, both of them got yibam, 1 and 1. The Gemara says all the drushes to say that that's not so. And the Mishnah ended off that if one of them anyway is passed to the Kohen because she's a grusha, so then give a chalitza to her. Why give a chalitza to the kosher one and mess him up? And a person should learn from that not to spill out his unwanted belongings if somebody else could use them.
Why does it only deal with the grusha, the chalutz, and not the yibum? If he marries one yibum,
He can marry everyone. He's not messing anybody up. What do you mean? He can't marry whichever one he wants.
can't marry, can you?
You
do
can marry
three
either one.
women?
No.
No, that's what I'm saying. Why does it only use the example of chalutza? That she
What should it say?
It's a yibum.
What should it
Why does
say?
it say only chalutz?
What should it say?
If he marries, or
Yes, he has
yivam,
the-
or he's chalutz.
He's allowed to marry any one of these. There are two wives. The brother married their two wives. He can marry whichever one he wants. What should it say? He has a choice to marry whichever one he wants. I don't see the kasha.
No, I'm saying, why does it use the example of the?
He's giving chalitza, so he's going to make the woman is going to be puzzled to marry a Kohen. So if one of them is puzzled anyway to marry a Kohen, so give it to her. Don't make the other one puzzled to Kohen. If he's marrying, so he's marry whoever one he wants. But it's, the next section talks about what's called the mamzer. Rabbi Kiva says chayve lavin, and it comes out of chiddush ketkovas chalutzasa, which we hold as only Rabbanan. He holds as the raisa. He holds the child born of that is also a mamzer. The Rabbanan say that the mamzer is only from chayve krisas and not from chayve lavin, and that's how we pass in. But the Gemara at the end, the whole Gemara number days was all talking about if the child is at least pagam lakuna, and the maskana comes out not the child's not even pagam lakuna, and there's no kavachomer from Almana because over there she's worse because she herself becomes puzzle. And the Gemara tried the other kashas we took care of, but this kasha remains, and therefore we say that Rabbi Yosef never said that the child is pagam lakuna. What did he mean to say? That even the point that Bishua that says that a mamzer, that the child born of chavi krisos is not a mamzer, but it is pasal lakuna. And that's not relevant to us because we all that it's even a mamzer. So that's not relevant to us. Yashikach, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, Abby,
Got
shalom.
it now. Hello.
Shalom.
Got it. You see
Okay.
that picture? They got it.
Good to see you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.